Well, let's do this. I saw Shawn was trying to call in. I think we let him into the Zoom call and then it looks like he dropped off. So let's we'll wait to talk about the subject matter, but who's got questions that we can be talking about? Let's talk about deals, this is your chance to, think strategically with a good group of people. Hey Carol, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. How's Monterey?
It is cold and windy, and we're gonna get some rain.
Yeah. Yeah. Is Monterey pretty much like cloudy most of the year? Probably not in the summer though, huh?
Now we get our fog in the summer, so this
Oh
time
yeah.
of year is actually sort of that non-fog.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm in Salinas, so I'm a little bit in
You're inland, so you avoid the fog proper. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
My mom lives in Morro Bay, and Morro Bay is exactly like that. Like in the middle of the summer, it's like foggy, and you drive, a couple miles inland. It's, beautiful and brilliant, Central Coast. So there you go. All right. I see Shawn trying to join. He's the little engine that could. So hopefully he makes it here.
Okay, you got me now?
Yeah. Hey Shawn, how are you?
Jeez. Hold on. Hold on. Is my video on?
No video yet.
Okay, hold on. Oh, start video.
It's all good. It's all good. Did
It
you
was
did you have the notorious Zoom update right when you were logging in?
it just wasn't connecting me for
Hmm.
some reason. There we go.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, good to see you, man.
You too. Just drove into Phoenix. Just literally rushed in.
Yeah. So when are you moving to Phoenix?
Oh, I really like it here.
Yeah.
There there's maybe because it's a change of scenery,
Hmm.
but it feels like there's more distressed opportunity here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that market, I mean, I was listening to somebody the other day and they were talking about the for sale market turning down. I don't think I got any specific stats, but there was sort of like a general feel that that was happening. So,
Yeah. I think in Phoenix there's still a lot of areas that have not been improved.
hmm.
So there's still a lot of buildings, a lot of properties that are just really bad condition.
Yeah.
Far more than you see like where I live in Orange County.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You just don't see it as much. You see a lot more of it here.
So it may not be your appetite, but I did some work years ago in Tucson, and although that market's much smaller, I think that probably has more distress.
Yep.
Although it's a smaller market, so you got that trade-off. But yeah, I really like Scottsdale. I've been working on my private pilot's license, so I went and did some training at the Scottsdale Air Park. And was stayed there for a few days while I did my training and sort of got a, little experience. I mean, I'd been to Phoenix before, but never spent any time. And Scottsdale is beautiful. My God.
I'm in Scottsdale right now.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm
There you
I'm
go.
looking at Camelback Mountains right as we
There you go.
speak.
Yeah. So I went walking one night from the airport because I stayed at the hotel next to the airport, and there was like I think it's a project called the Oasis or something
Oh yeah.
like that. And that was, like a beacon, in the dark, like I was walking at night, and it was like the shining city on the hill, and you go walk through it, and it's just amazing. So
Yep.
there you go.
Love it here.
Little
Love it.
sales of Scottsdale market for you.
Yeah, you got to go to the outskirts of Scottsdale. Scottsdale is really expensive.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. In fact, I just found out about it, the place Paradise Valley, like that
Yep.
showed up somehow in my YouTube feed. And I was like, oh, go check it out. Well,
So
look,
if you look, just interesting thing. The average price of Paradise Valley is 3.2 million.
yeah, that's in fact the video I saw had that exact stat. There was like,
Yep.
if you're gonna, like one of the realtors, marketing videos. So there you go. Beautiful though. Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful.
Well,
Beautiful.
let's dig into it. So, Shawn, what I'll do is, sort of just give the background for anybody who didn't see the tweet, but in fact, maybe if you sort of walk through it, but you had the deal, I think it was Orange County. It looked like it was a flip deal for you, but you sort of did some analysis, like if I kept it and put a new loan on it, here's my mortgage payment, here's the loan payment, and what I recollect and what I reacted to is, this thing, you didn't say these words, but the paraphrase was, it doesn't look like this thing works as a rental. And so, for everybody's benefit, I answered back and I said, multifamily, beats single family. And it was, half in jest. And then Shawn, you came back and you said, teach me. Like, what does that mean? So that's the basis for the conversation. I think my intention, Shawn, you weigh in as you see, as you want. I mean, well, I'm going to totally, defer to, how you want to handle, your thinking. That this is sort of a, like, digesting of, the difference between single family rental and multifamily rental. And I have some observations from the multifamily side. I think you do from the single family side, but I think let's start there. And then, certainly for me, and I think you're the same, is, I love questions, whether it's about this subject matter, and, Shawn, you can hang around if you want at the end, but I'll stay on, as we get, towards the tail end of this thing, around 11 or 12 o'clock, people have just general questions about development. I'm happy to stay on for that. So Shawn, let's dig into your stuff.
Let's do it. So the original tweet was a property that I have right now. I bought it for 415,000, which was a great basis. Orange County, 6,000 square foot lot, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, about as cookie cutter as it comes. Pretty high rent area. A rent would be about $3,200, which is about $3.50 a foot. So it's high rent.
Mm-hmm.
The gist of my tweet was the mortgage payment, even at 415 grand at 7%, is $2,800 or whatever it was. Add your property taxes, add your insurance, add any maintenance, vacancy, add anything, all the equity's gone. Now the house is worth 800. So that's a below 50% of the basis is my loan amount.
Yeah.
And so I get frustrated because I go, I want to keep these houses because the basis is great, but there is zero cash flow to be had. Now, will rates come down and will we be able to refinance later on? Different conversation.
Yeah.
But you still got to hold that time period. Now, I do believe rates will come down. I don't think they'll get to where they were during COVID.
Yeah.
But even at a 5% rate, which might be where we stabilize, it's not for 10 years before the thing starts breaking even.
Yeah. So you think it's, you sort of, like, in your mind, it estimate is like you got to carry the thing at a negative or break even for 10 years to get to that point where it starts to make money.
Yep.
Yeah. So then I don't know that you put this in the tweet, but then I got the gist of it was like, that doesn't make sense. So, ostensibly you sell the thing to monetize that equity position, move on to the next one, Yep. Yeah. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay. So I think I'll just share sort of like my reaction to that. I wasn't particularly surprised, although I think in this environment, we could also say that this same negative cash flow scenario could be applied to some multifamily projects, not all, some. And certainly the percentage of deals that moved into the non-feasible category has increased, right? Just based on interest rates and certainly, cap rates. Hey, Jonah, can you mute if you don't mind? Here, let me do it. So, my response of multifamily beats single family wasn't even related to that, right? Like, I think all real estate is under pressure generally. Where I went with it was that, even if you said, let's say you said it cash flowed, right? And I think even if it did cash flow, you could probably argue wouldn't cash flow really great and it'd still be that 10 years until it was meaningful, right? And then also the other factor that you probably thought of is that what's your whole dollar return every year for managing that thing? You've got, yeah, it's zero now, but let's just say in 10 years, would it be 2,000 a month, 2,000 a year, 6,000 a year, 10,000 a year, 50, like at some point you go, look, how much work is this thing versus the actual money I make? And then I think you probably have experienced this, but I've read some examples of it. Like, you got an HVAC system that goes bad, you wiped out like your entire year's, cash flow, and maybe, and if you're at break even, you're more negative. And so I think that would be one of the examples of like, if I looked at functionally, let's just, compare it to, I'm just making this up on the fly, but let's just say you took this equity, what was the equity in the deal?
400,000.
400,000. Let's say you took that 400,000 and you went and found some multifamily somewhere. Now we can get into, where is that? Is it Orange County? Is it Phoenix? Is it the Midwest somewhere? Obviously, each of those are going to have different, both regulatory, like difficulty levels. California, Shawn and I will agree, is a terrible regulatory environment. We've had this offline conversation, right?
Oh,
Although I think we both agreed we're probably staying here, although I'm watching you in Phoenix, and that
I'm
that
not moving. I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
moving.
I get it. I get it. So, it's like you take that 400,000, and this is sort of like the multifamily beats single family. Sort of take the 400,000 and invest that into some apartments, and then what could that produce for you? And I didn't do necessarily any math, but I think the discussion point is, and anybody weigh in who's got different thoughts on this, and you, most importantly, Shawn, is that you could take that 400,000, go find a well underwritten multifamily deal, and do two things with it. There's probably more, but these are the two things I think about. One is that you could probably make more money, better cash flow, better yield on cost on that 400,000. And then most importantly, or equally, is that, like, from a management perspective, one of the factors on your single family home, or let's say you have several single family homes, you are not going to be able to afford property management properly, and your estimate of zero cash flow probably was, managing it yourself, but it's still negative or break even, and you put a load of property management on there, and then it's even worse. And as everybody knows, and Shawn knows this, property management on a single family home, you're not paying 3 or 4% of gross for your property management fees. You're paying, what, I don't know, what do you say, Shawn, 10% minimally for a property manager to take on a single family home?
I mean, I think they'll still find people for 6, but
Yeah.
you're gonna get you. It's gonna be hard.
Yeah, and then
The-
you get what you pay for, maybe.
of
Right.
course, of course. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. So what's your, like, just, I think, what, like, so just saying philosophically, high level, you take that 400,000, you invest in a multifamily, it's probably not in Orange County. Let's just say that, maybe you could do something in Phoenix, you do something in the Midwest, and then, converting that into making money on your 400,000 plus, you don't have to property management daily. So that's sort of the gist of, like, one example of, like, in my multifamily beats single family, like, how does that hit you? Um, is that something, feels right to you? Have you looked at that? I know you've had some discussions in your tweets about, acquiring different other property types, but does that ever come into your thought process? And, do you make that comparison when you think about the single family versus multifamily?
Yeah. So I actually did buy a 10 unit in Phoenix. I don't know if I told you that, but I did.
No, tell us about it. Yeah, I'd love to hear.
So I bought a 10 year. So I bought 2 properties in Phoenix now. I bought a 10 and an 8. Um, so I'm in the multifamily space in Phoenix.
Yeah.
It's been great. They're both full gut remodels, down the studs, spending about 35K a unit for rehabs here. It's taken me a lot of work to put crews together. I really discounted my connections in Orange County
Mm,
and how easy it is to get work done. I
yeah.
had to remake all those connections in a new market, which has
Yeah.
been very challenging. In fact, I almost had a contractor get me for 25 grand, almost.
When you say get you, how do you mean? Like, steal from you, or how do
So, yeah, so I got a referral for a contractor. I interviewed like multiples. I ended up hiring a guy. I liked him. He was licensed. He was in the area. I did a full scope of work for every unit, really broke it down, paint colors, I mean, detailed scope. We agreed on the price, we agreed on the payment terms, and he was not signing my basics. It wasn't even a law agreement. It was just like
the
a,
scope of work?
a scope and a payment schedule.
Mhm.
That was it.
Yeah.
And I did it in Google Docs. Like,
Right.
there was no legal terms, no nothing.
Mhm.
It was
Yeah.
like, hey, let's just be on the same page.
Yeah, it's simple but straightforward, no, fluff.
Nothing. So he kept saying, "Oh, I'll get to it tonight. Oh, I'm busy." I kept not signing it. So I was like, okay. So then he calls me one day. He's like, "Hey, I need to keep my guys moving. I'm gonna go start on demo." I was like, "Look, okay, but I'm not sending you any money until we sign."
Yeah.
So I go, "You're working at your own risk." He's like, "No, I'm gonna sign it tonight." Blah blah blah. So he goes and works, does the demo for like 2 or 3 days, and then like starts hounding me for the first payment, which was 25 grand. And I kept saying, "No, you like I get that. Sign the agreement. I'll send it out." So about a week later, he stops answering, stops calling,
Oh boy.
and I'm like, "Ooh, red flag."
Right.
And then he texts again, like, "Hey, did you send out the payment?" Dude, get all of this. Talk about the blessing of Twitter. I got a DM from an anonymous account on Twitter, and I don't even know who he is. He says, "Hey, I work for so and so,
This
and
guy.
yeah, and I worked on your property in Phoenix." And I was like, "Whoa!" He's like, "Long story short, the guy had an affair and moved to Utah with his girlfriend." Whoa, that's
Like during the time he was working on your project or around
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. But if I would have sent the deposit of 25K,
Yeah, he would have disappeared on you.
he would have disappeared on me.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk about so then this and I like I'll ask the question, Shawn, and you disclose what you want and what you feel comfortable. But is the sort of this logic, this 400,000 investment in Orange County versus Phoenix in an 8 or 10 unit? Do those numbers sort of like equate to like in rough terms?
So I could do a lot better on my money in Phoenix.
Hmm.
A lot
In the multifamily, meaning
in the multifamily
yeah,
space.
right, right.
Now, the discussion in California, so so I think I could buy straight up value add in Phoenix. I think I could find properties that need 30, 35 grand a unit that need turned around. I think I can find that here. So that's what I'm doing.
Right.
Now in California, it's all about in my mind, it's all about upzoning.
Mhm.
So what can I do with lot splits? There's lots of pending stuff out there that's like, if it hits, like SB9 and SB10, they've kind of not really been advantageous
Yeah,
yet.
right,
Too much red tape in them. Now, if they take out some or they adjust them a little bit, it could change.
right.
So in my mind, Orange County is a upzoning redevelopment market. How do I add density to properties
Yep.
versus like a Phoenix where it's like, how do I rehab a property?
Yeah.
So they're very different.
So in that Orange County example, and I'm with you, and I SB9, SB10, I'm in agreement with you. And it was like what those to me are like early versions of where ADU law used to be.
Yep.
And then the cities played all their silly games with ADUs, and then the state smacked them down with like the additional laws and got rid
Yeah.
of the ownership requirements, all that crazy stuff. So that to me, SB9 is like early stages like that. Would you add in that upzoning, rezoning, some sort of entitlement? Let's call that an entitlement play of some kind, right? Like you're dealing with regulations and laws and advantaging the sites with that. Would you put new construction and forget for a minute like the general infeasibility of new construction? I'll explain to you why in a minute because the stuff we're doing is like working, and I'll tell that people why. But if you add new construction and then all these are, and this is a question, you sell it at the end of it. In other words, you rezone it and sell it, you upzone and sell it, you SB9, maybe you build it, right? Because you could get some units on a lot, maybe you build that. Does that all sort of flow together in the same grouping of do this thing from an entitlement or design upzoning standpoint and then sell it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Pretty much.
even with all that, like an SB9, was an SB9, four units on a lot, that probably still doesn't pencil as a multifamily anyways. It still has the same issue you have on the your tweet example, right?
Same issue.
Yeah.
Mainly because, I mean, people are gonna roast me for this, but it's $300 a square foot to build.
Mhm.
Like, sure, some track guys might be able to get sub 200.
Yeah.
Like, for the most part, it's $300 a foot. So you go build 4 units at 4,000 square foot, 1.2 million. Plus, you got to buy the lot. Plus, I mean, you're
Fees, impact fees.
yeah, you're $3 million into the deal
Yeah.
for 4 units.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
So let me share, and Shawn sort of knows some of this, so I'll explain some of the stuff just for everybody else's benefit. But we're our company, Urban Pacific, is building a specific type of townhouse product. We call it Urban Townhouse. It's a 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom, 3-story townhouse, 1,700 square foot, 2-car garage. And right now, for us, those deals are working, which I think is like unusual in this marketplace, unusual in the context of what Shawn's described and an even general multifamily. And the reason it's working is because basically we're producing a very high whole dollar rent. So let's say for a 5-bedroom unit, I'm working on a deal in Santa Ana right now. It's 4,000 to like 4,700 a unit for that big unit. Call it a macro unit. Call it a multi-generational, however you want to describe it. But the reason it works is because we're building a lot of inexpensive bedroom space, right? With 5 bedrooms, it does have 4 bathrooms, so those are costs. But somebody I was doing some math with yesterday because they said, "Oh, well, so I'm on the USC Lusk Real Estate Center board, and Richard Green is executive director. And when he heard about what we're doing, we had a conversation. He goes, "Oh, you're not doing density in units, you're doing density in bedrooms." And I had never heard that before. I was like, "Yeah, that's totally right." And so when you start to think about it, if we did a 10-unit UTH 5-bedroom, product, that's 50 bedrooms. But then if you compare that to doing 51 bedrooms, and Shawn will know this intuitively, well, when you do 10 units of UTH, you're building basically 10 kitchens for 50 bedrooms. Where you do 51 bedrooms, you're doing 50 kitchens for 51 bedrooms. And your kitchen cost is your highest cost, and that's probably $400, $500, $600 a foot for the kitchen, and your bedrooms are, $150 a foot, and then you get the blended 300 that you were describing. And by the way, I'll just share, Shawn, our model, we self-perform like a home builder. We don't use third-party GCs. We go direct to the subcontractor market, and horizontal, vertical, and general conditions is about $200 a foot. And so it fits within that production model of cost that you described. But because we don't, have a GC fee, I mean, we, charge construction management and development fees, but we're sort of building at cost. So we have that unique advantage. And that's the other factor that's making our deals work. But I'm with you, Shawn. So what I've been thinking about last probably several months is really a bifurcated way of doing business between California and everywhere else, right? Or maybe I'm going to get political here for a minute, red states versus blue states, right? And you guys will know what I mean here. So for us, we go, okay, California is great for the right kind of product, workforce housing like that we do, that pencils, that's got high demand, low supply. We've got a regulatory constrained environment. And you guys have all heard of, Warren Buffett, but he has this idea he calls a moat. A moat is some sort of protective mechanism around a business that basically protects you from competition, or at least lessens willingness to compete. So it might be intellectual property, it might be patents, maybe it's some sort of locational advantage. For us in California, and Shawn he and I have talked about this, although the regulatory environment from an autonomous standpoint is very, very difficult, if you know how to do it, it becomes a protective mechanism, because guess what? Somebody from Texas or Florida or North Carolina or even maybe New York, like, they hate California. It's miserable for them. And I agree, it's miserable for Shawn and I, daily. But if you figure out how to do it and pick the right projects, meaning you can pick really complex, difficult, almost impossible political or entitlement wise, or you can get, by right zone, which is more and more rare. But somewhere in the middle is what I call a project with a zoning story. So it's got certain right characteristics and the right politics, and you sort of see a pathway through to success. It's like you don't look at it in the face of it and go, "Gosh, man, I'm just going to get killed," right? I want to build apartments in, the middle of a single family neighborhood in Tustin. You get run out of town, right? The single family NIMBYs will, eat you alive, right? But, there's other stories of places that you can go. So where I start to bifurcate is you build new in California. This fits your rezoning, upzoning thing, Shawn. And then basically within the context of the Costa-Hawkins law, whatever's going to happen with the rent control right now, Costa-Hawkins has anything that's pre-1978 and that a city also has rent control, those are automatically rent control. So if you're in city of Santa Ana or city of LA, and they have rent control ordinances, and Costa-Hawkins says anything pre-1978 is automatically under rent control, no questions asked, right? It's just a given. Costa-Hawkins is going to probably go bye-bye here through a referendum or some state law. And I think where they're going to go, Shawn, is to a rolling 15-year window from the day you get a C of O to 15 years later, you're exempt because they don't want to destroy the new construction marketplace. If they put rent control day one, that would, kill it. But they got this 15-year period. So I go, I'm happy to build into that 15-year window, right? Which doesn't exist now, but I think is coming in the next speculatively 2 to 5 years. That will become the law of the land. And so if I can build and hold it for 5 years, maximize my entitlement, my build out, my rent maximization through trending of rents over that 5-year period, and then I sell it, then I avoid the 15-year, clamping down. And by the way, I have to sell it far enough ahead of the 15 years where I can still get my full value. That's why I pick 5 years, because then I got 10-year left on a tail. So if a new buyer still has 10 years before they get rent control. So that's California. So you build new, you hold it for a period of time, and then you sell it. Okay. And then outside of California is what you're doing. You're right on the mark here. In fact, for me, it's Texas and Florida and North Carolina, the markets I like best. And we'll do this in the workforce housing model, but you acquire existing assets, correctly sourced, good value add projects, but that are in regulatory friendly states, red states for my theory right here. And so you don't own in California, you own outside of California, or let's say, in those markets that are regulatory friendly. And then in those markets that are difficult entitlements and have, crazy regulatory, you build, you maximize profitability in a project within a 5-year period, and then you get out.
It is a big difference doing business outside of California.
Yeah.
I don't have a ton of experience. I'm only in Arizona.
How's Phoenix for regulatory, like landlord friendliness?
I could do an eviction in 17 days.
Yeah. So it's got those, better characteristics. And plus you can find deals. I mean, that's a great example. I mean, that's why I like, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, the Texas Triangle is where we want to focus on for this, value add acquisition workforce housing model I'm describing. But, Phoenix is, great. Plus for you can live in Orange County and get to Phoenix,
very easily.
You got to just get that plane, Shawn, and you can be in Phoenix in an hour.
It only takes me 5 hours to drive.
Yeah, right.
But
right.
Phoenix is a much easier market.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that worries me about like a Phoenix is when you drive in, the amount of new construction under development is mind-blowing. Tens of thousands of units.
That's why for me, and I'm not saying I will never develop in these red state markets, but if you take Texas as an example, they can just build on the periphery, in Dallas as they're building to the north and a little bit of the east and west, sort of like a fan shape there as best I know it. And so Phoenix is the same way. It's virtually unlimited. I mean, certainly land is available. Probably political stance on growth is probably friendly, right? As is Texas, as is Florida, as is North Carolina. So that's the offset. That's one of the reasons I don't go to a development model in red states first. It's an acquisition model where obviously you're buying at a discount well enough that you're protected. Now this 8 and 10 unit deal is your stance, like forever or long-term hold.
Yep, we're holding for long-term holds.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, we have long-term debt, low basis. We're paying for rehabs out of pocket.
Yeah.
And we're going to let them roll.
Yeah. So just to put closure on the single family versus multifamily, just a couple other things that I think about just from and this sort of is in the same management perspective vein. And I know the I don't know if the SFR investor guy is on, but I think, if you like SFR rental, I think there's a story for that, but I think you really got to work on scale where you can have then property management be, spread amongst enough units. And I can't tell you what a unit count is, but, for a multifamily deal, you did the 8 and 10 units. And I think that's sort of a middle ground, but, for me, it's really want to be like, minimally 20 units and really preferably 50 units and above just to get that fixed cost spread across the most number of units. You know, for you, Shawn, in Phoenix, you go 8 and 10, and then you buy another 20. You know, as you really get better at the market, you find, you know, off-market deal source. You build a big enough portfolio, 100, 200 units. Do you have a goal in Phoenix for like a unit count that you're thinking about?
Nope, nope, no goal. I'm just
Unlimited,
here.
unlimited.
No, I'm
Yeah.
not a big. I'm not a big portfolio guy. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
I
But
I,
but
I
you're
lo-
finding the right deals. I mean, your skill set of the construction knowledge pairs beautifully with these small property value add
yeah,
deals because you can run them direct, right?
yeah,
You know, you're building the sub base, which, you know, going to a new market like you're describing is always like tough.
hard.
But I gotta assume there's probably a ton of good subs there. You know, you just got to weed through all the you know bad.
I I have found I have better subs here than I have in California.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's I mean,
Why do you
I've
think
used
that
it.
is? Like, what is it about? I
I
mean,
I don't know.
perception. Yeah,
I don't know. But like this plumber that I'm using, licensed, perfect English,
yep,
Hispanic.
yep.
I mean, cuts the concrete, digs trenches. Like they are doing everything.
Yeah.
$6,000 a unit.
I wonder if
Relocating. It's just the subs here have been. My framing contractor was out of this world.
yeah.
Great.
Interesting. Interesting. I wonder if it's I don't know, sort of a filtering process. Like I think for LA and Orange County, you know, and I'm going to speak bluntly here, and Shawn knows this, a lot of your labor will be, you know, immigrant labor and possibly not legal labor. And I'm not necessarily saying the owners of the subcontracting companies, although I know a few of those. Um, but I wonder if you get this sort of, you know, gateway entry market effect of construction labor. In other words, somebody just got here, they have a construction skill, you know, they're great concrete guy, great block work guys. You know, all the guys from Mexico are super concrete guys. But then for Phoenix, you know, they sort of grow up into the Phoenix market. They move, you know, they built a certain capacity, maybe made some money, and then they moved to Phoenix. So it's sort of the filtering of the longer term players or something like that. I mean, that's just pure speculation. It's sort of a harsh way to
Yeah.
think about it, but I think that's probably
I don't know why. I've had great luck.
yeah.
I've had
Yeah.
great luck with my AC, electrical. I've not had a bad trade here yet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's great. That's great.
It's been great.
So anyway, so put final like I think, you know, SFR is viable if you get a big enough portfolio of homes to then, you know, have a professional management company. I do think you're still going to have a higher cost of management no matter what, because if you think about it practically, so if you got a single family house, you know, you got 4 exposed walls, you know, windows on all 4 sides, you know, one roof, you know, one lawn. So somebody's got to go to that place and take care of that. You know, obviously got groups like Invitation Homes, you know, that own whatever they own now, 80,000, you know, single family homes. And by the way, and Shawn may have observed this, but when people started buying these tranches of single family homes, and really it was 2008, 2009 when that really started, you know, in earnest. I remember saying, gosh, they're going to have a hard time managing 80,000 or 60,000 or whatever the number anybody projected of, you know, all separate single family homes. Now they did it. So you can, you know, and the numbers seem to work really well. You know, if you look at Invitation Homes, you know, 10K, and, you know, they're making good money. But here's the interesting thing is, for the most part, a lot of the portfolio of all the biggest companies in the SFR rental domain have assets that they still carry on the books from 2008 to 2012. And so they're still acquiring new, but the cost basis, as Shawn will tell you, he did some stuff. You know, you could buy super cheap in 08, 09, 2010. It was brilliant, right? If you could do it. Shawn, I think he even did some of that. As
I did.
recall.
I did 50.
Yeah, right. And you could have held on to those.
I did. I held
Yeah.
on to him till 2017 and 18.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought
Okay.
it was the top of the market.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
There you go.
stuff I bought for 50 grand, we sold for 350.
Right.
I thought that was top.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they
Exactly.
weren't
And so
even
and so
if,
you got several years of managing 50 homes then.
oh, it was terrible. It was Scott, even I mean, I was buying in San Bernardino, California. I was paying between 50 and 125 grand for houses.
Amazing. 50 grand. That's amazing.
My lowest house was a 3-bedroom, 1 bath I bought for 26,500 on Del Rosa, 7327 Del Rosa, in case anyone wants to fact check me. Uh Baseline in Del Rosa in San Bernardino, $25,000. Even at that, they were rents that were very low. They were 800 to 1,100 bucks.
Yeah.
Even at that, we would spend 30 grand, 40 grand because they were trashed.
Yeah.
The quality of tenant and how hard they were on the properties, it took all my profit every year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every year. I literally never made money on them. I mean,
Yeah.
I might have made a little bit here and there, but like it was
nothing consistent. Yeah,
nothing.
you're always, catch up a little bit, get beat back by the roof
Yep.
or the HVAC or the plumbing goes bad or whatever, or a tenant beats the crap out of a unit, probably.
Yep.
And just
Yep.
so for everybody's benefit, San Bernardino is, probably one of the, like most impoverished, location cities in Inland Empire and obviously San Bernardino County. So that'd be definitely like a C, maybe even a D product category. Is that right? You agree
Oh
with
yeah.
that? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think it's, so you got incredible basis, still even with that, not enough to, I mean, appreciation wise, you did great, 50 to
Great.
1,000 to 350, So, I mean, you made the best decision with the information you had at the moment in 2017 to sell that portfolio, but you still probably would have, cash or slightly negative for like forever, arguably,
Forever. Arguably.
and like
Arguably.
what would the market be now for that, so that house that you bought for 50 and you sold for 350, what's it worth today?
500, 525.
Okay. So, still got some decent appreciation, but that's, what, 7 years later, to go from 350 to 550 roughly. I mean, that's probably,
Yep.
it's probably in line with a, linear,
Yeah.
appreciation number.
Yeah.
Now
Now rents have gone crazy.
Right. Okay. There
I
you
mean,
go.
rents now have gone from $1,000 to $2,200.
So more than doubled. But then I
Yeah.
would also argue that your regulatory load and your ability to raise rents is much more limited today than it was even in 2017, right? Fair enough.
Well,
Like,
look, here's the reality. I would have got killed during COVID
yeah, right.
because
Because
those
all those
people,
people, none of them would have paid.
they wouldn't have paid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Call it whatever you want, they wouldn't have paid.
Yeah.
That I would have got crushed.
It's interesting. Richard Green, I mentioned before, he had an interesting statistics. Like, so in our workforce housing units that we owned during the COVID period, we didn't have any issue. Now we were a brand new A product and we build in like a B and C neighborhood. So it's a working class neighborhood with an A product for working class families. We had none of that. But Richard had an interesting stat. He said, really, the main problem with people that didn't pay during COVID were upper middle, and high income tenants who sort of had, like, they knew they could sort of scam the rules. And then he said his stats showed for like the lower middle income, working class families, is that they did anything they could to keep paying the rent, including he had some stats that a lot of them put their rent on credit cards for a period of time when they weren't working. So at least for our product, which is not either brand new A stack flat type, luxury housing, or like, what you dealt with like in the B and C, we're sort of somewhere in the middle there. We didn't have a single issue at all, and I don't know like how to compare that to what you would have experienced on that. But I think those people that in your houses that you own in that portfolio at the time, might have been these, credit card type paying rent. Which, by the way, I don't, want any tenant to ever have to pay their rent on a credit card. That's not a sustainable model for long run, rent, health and their ability to pay it, and plus it's punishing to them. But they also knew, look, don't screw the housing up,
Yeah.
right? Because if we don't got the housing, then we're out. We're on a world hurt. So
Yeah.
okay.
Now I will say I have a friend. He's actually a lurker on Twitter, but he does brand new construction, build to rent in the Inland Empire, and he does like 30 home tracks.
Gotcha.
There's a house in ADU. And
Gotcha.
he's getting, even in Highland, California, San Bernardino. Yeah, I think he told me for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet, he got almost $3,000 for rent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So he's building track home basis, $200 a foot.
Yeah, he's got the production, and it's a single family house, and that single family house rents for the 3,000, and then the ADU has a separate rent. Okay.
Yep.
What are the ADUs renting for if he told you?
I think he told me he got $2,200 for an ADU.
Wow.
Yeah, high,
Yeah.
high.
So one of the ways we think, like, if this is a great example, because we actually use not a single family detached house, but let's say it's like a 3-bedroom townhouse. We use that as a comp for 5 bedrooms because as you imagine, there's like no 5-bedroom rent comps, like just,
None.
none. Usually our own projects after a while. But we'll take that 3,000 and then we'll divide it by the number of bedrooms. So we get $1,000 per bedroom. And then we can start to use that math for if we do a 5-bedroom, you'd say it's 5,000, 5 times 1,000. We don't go to 5,000. We look at the top of the market. But I'm not surprised by that. I came across it's interesting. You'll find this interesting, Shawn. So we didn't look at the Inland Empire. So we started the UTH program in 2017, and through about 2021, 22, we weren't like Inland Empire was off limits. Like we just weren't going there. For all the reasons you know.
Yeah.
And then I went and visited. I found a project. It was a company called Realm Development, and they were a subsidiary or partner of Bascom Group.
Oh
Bascom,
yeah.
big
Yep.
multifamily owner, and they had built a project called Mission Lofts. It was on the other side
Oh
of the
yeah. Yeah, I
freeway.
do work. Yeah.
Yeah, from downtown. You know the deal.
Can see it from the freeway.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so that project for everybody's benefit is like 2 or 3 buildings. It's mostly like 3-story stacked flats, internal stairs, internal corridors, that kind of product, but with surface parking, no podium. But interestingly enough, and this is really what got me on the Inland Empire, is they had a little tiny out parcel on the back of the property that they had 2 townhome units, Shawn, like just little tiny things, right? And I looked up the rents, and they were 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and they were renting these darn things for $3,800 a month. Like, and this is like, whatever, 2.5, 3 years ago. And I was like, oh, what's this? Because this is like totally not what I expected. I don't think of Inland Empire at all this way. I think they've since sold that project. But that was sort of what got started me on this sort of townhome thing in the Inland Empire. I mean, we're already doing it in LA Orange County for all the reasons that everybody would recognize. But that was a real game changer. In fact, right now in our portfolio, we probably have more units in the city of Riverside. It's like over 500 now. I think half of it's in the city of Riverside of 4 projects. So it's a
Wow.
it's a good market for us.
Yeah. I think so too.
All right, good. Well, listen, we're at 15 till. Shawn, what time can you hang around to?
I'll
No.
get around. Take some questions.
Okay. So questions, guys. Let's open it up.
Okay, so I was just wondering because I got the same problem. I'm in Boulder, Colorado. I got the same price problem. I can't keep rentals, but I make good money doing flips and spec homes.
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to figure out, like, I don't want to do this forever. So I'm trying to figure out the cash flow situation. I bought some townhomes that cash flow in the outer markets, but have you guys looked at anything else like dividend stocks or group homes or like doing syndications for other developers or?
And Dave, in the context, like I heard you don't want to do this forever. So what I interpret that as, and you tell me if I'm on the money here,
Yeah.
as how do I build some assets that cash flow? Is that
Yes.
fair?
Yes.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And by the way, this is a conversation that we're all in. Me too. Hence the Texas and Florida conversation that I described earlier, and what Shawn's doing, obviously in Phoenix. Let me ask you this question. So the townhomes that you bought, you said in the outer markets, do you mean in Denver Metro?
Yeah, Denver Metro, like Westminster, Thornton. So
Yeah, yeah,
350
Oh.
purchase price. The property taxes are lower out here. They rent
right,
for 500.
right. Do
Um,
you like Denver enough for multifamily rental to do more work there? Or would you want to go out of market or be, and I know it's like a philosophical question, you're speculating here, but let me ask you the way, do you love Denver so much that you would want to stay there and own there? Or are you agnostic to that?
I'm agnostic, and I think Shawn mentioned this. We have enough single family rentals. Like I don't want any more. It's
Yeah.
like
Like, so you have
the
the
headache.
ones that you manage now, and you're having the same complaint, sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah. So look, I don't know who came on, but I was telling Dave, we developed some apartments in Westminster, love that market. Um I think for you, Dave, because you have the knowledge of the market, being in Boulder and working in, other of the cities like Thornton, et cetera, I'm thinking you sort of do something like what Shawn's doing in Phoenix. In other words, try to find value add. My instincts would be to go to older neighborhoods in different cities in the metro area. Obviously, that could include, city of Denver itself. The only challenge that I feel, and you know this better than I, is I worry about Denver as a blue city. And,
Yes.
and I think, does Denver have rent control?
Not yet, but I had to evict somebody last year. It took 9 months and
Yeah, for an eviction.
for an eviction.
Yeah. So I worry about the regulatory environment, going the California direction, which, really as well as I do. So I think, for me at a high level, I think this sort of, again, it's not a political, interpretation. It's just a regulatory with sort of the political influence behind the regulations of these red state markets. And, doing something like what Shawn's doing, this 8, 10, 15, 20 unit marketplace, you can fly below the radar of the institutional, value add guys,
Mm-hmm.
who can't touch that stuff. I think, in my experience, you can connect directly with, long-term owners of these existing small assets and build a rapport with them that could, put you, front and center when they are ready to sell. Right. Like, almost like, calling people ahead of time. I mean, obviously there's calling, hey, do you have it for sale now? There's that conversation, but it's like, building, like, let's say you identify a market and you go, hey, I want to be in Houston, and I go, try to like identify assets that sort of fit this category, certain other strategic, components that, we'll talk about later. But that's where I could be. I know, look, dividend stocks, I love dividend stocks. I'm not a big stock guy. I just sort of bought the brand names and, sort of whatever, what do they call it? The, dividend, there's like a,
Aristocrats.
yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. You read the same newsletter that I do. Um, so there's that. Um, you know, I think, real estate has the weakness of being geographically located, and then you're subject to the regulatory environment. So you can move that, right? I don't want to be in California, be in Texas, or et cetera, not be in Denver, be in Phoenix, or whatever choice you make, but it's still got an attack vector of like being immovable, right? That you got to live and deal with the, politics of that locale. And, would I say that if Texas or a Florida would, politically and regulatorily go the wrong direction, mean worse for business and worse for landlords? I don't anticipate that. And maybe there's even a more refined way to think about it, is it's blue cities versus red states, or blue cities in red states. There's a thing. So if you're in Houston or Dallas or Austin, within the city limits of Austin, you could anticipate rent control in the future. So then maybe you go, hey, I'm going to be outside of Austin. I'm going to be in, whatever, cities are adjacent. So there's that one thing. But I don't know, Shawn, any of this makes sense? Anything to, disagree with?
It all makes sense to me. I'm not a stock guy. I stick to what I know. I'm a
Yeah.
real estate guy.
Yeah.
That's it.
Same.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Thanks. What
Yeah.
about industrial or anything? You guys ever look
Mm.
into anything like that or no?
I'll share just thinking. I put out a tweet and I asked, and I put various people on the list. I think Shawn was on there, Moses was on there, a few other people. And I said, hey, who, like, I want to teach my kids about value add multifamily, who has learning resources? I think Casey was on there, a few other people. And, what books, what courses, what videos can we watch? My background, I've been purely a developer my entire career. I have literally only ever owned multifamily assets longer term that I built, never actually acquired any, anything that was existing. Not to say that I won't change that, but I said, what's like, I wanted to ask the best of the best, like, how can I educate? And what I remember from that is Moses came back with a tweet and he goes, if your kids want a good life, have them do what Chris is doing in the industrial B space, acquiring. And I said, do you mean industrial? He's like, yes. And so Look, I gotta acknowledge like where Moses is at in the multifamily space and what he's invested in. And like, he's deep in LA, hardcore regulatory rent control environment. And so I took that like as gospel. Now, I explored that for a while, and I think Shawn, you did as well. Where I landed, Dave, is I love the idea of it, of renting to commercial businesses and not multifamily or, tenants, like residential tenants. You obviously, the regulatory environment for evictions and all that kind of stuff is like way easier. Obviously sort of a different way that the leases and the cash flow works and all that kind of thing, right? Where I landed and what sort of, took me off that path was I just realized I'm like an apartment guy, and I know it so well, and I'm so deeply ensconced in it. I mean, my career's, 35 plus years in apartments only ever. And I was like, I can't ignore that. And I felt like when I was starting to explore, industrial value add, that it was like the practical nature of income property and, gross income and operating expenses and all, like all that like works strategically and fundamentally the same, but it was like a different universe for me, and not one that couldn't be surmounted, Dave. Like, I think there's a story there if you really focus and you were really, like deeply believing in it. And I do, like, I'm still there. Like, I would say if you were, had a question between multifamily income and industrial, B value add, I would say go do industrial for all the reasons that Moses spoke about. I like, for me, it's just like, I don't know, there's something about it. And I'll end here. Like, for our workforce housing model, the mission is to house families. Like, that is our primary mission. And felt like, leaving that to do industrial, not that we would have ever left it entirely, but it seemed like it was taking me away from my mission focus, plus just, sort of a focus question on, running a business, development, fund management, that whole thing. So anyways, that's where I landed with it, Dave.
Well, thanks.
Yep. All right. Who else? Don't be shy. You have
I get it. Thanks, guys, for putting the talk on. Scott, Sean, appreciate sharing all the knowledge.
Yeah.
I've got kind of a general question
Mhm.
related to when you move beyond the back of the napkin numbers, and you're starting to put together your deal. How do you gain confidence in like your estimates, whether it's like the construction costs, the rent, or the sort of operational costs? Curious if you guys just operate off precedent, or if you've got some sources that you draw from.
Shawn, that's a great question. Want to throw in there?
Oh, for me, I'll take it.
Mhm.
So I am not afraid to talk to anybody about anything. So just yesterday, I got sent a deal in Dayton, Ohio. Never been there. 97 units, completely vacant. I know nothing. So I got to now gather the information I need to put together something for Dayton, Ohio. So what do? Number one, I tweet about it. See who's on Twitter that owns it, Dayton. I work the DMs on my Twitter like crazy. I start messaging people. Hey, do you own in Dayton? What are your rents? What I call property managers. I call owners. I will go on Google Street View. I'll walk down streets and look for rent signs or management companies. So I literally just put the data together. Like, I just start making calls and I ask people, and people give you the info.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I get confidence by making a lot of phone calls, and then I go conservative on my numbers.
Mhm. Yeah.
So if they tell me rent's $900, I'll put $850 into my pro
Yeah.
forma to start.
Yeah.
So,
That's great put together.
so Andrew, I'll just add a couple things. So, like, what Shawn's describing is like amazing. I mean, it's like, super guerrilla level stuff,
Mhm.
and the street view thing is fantastic. I've used that quite a bit too. That's a way I've sometimes found subs as I'm going through Street View and there's a
Yep.
subcontractor truck. I capture the name and number. That sort of randomly shows up. You can't go hunt that directly. But what I'll do, Andrew, and this is, so you could take what Shawn did and then just sort of layer with the some of the things, so like I always, property managers, totally key. Shawn's find him. I'll just, go in the, Google search and just look for property managers. I do think Shawn's style is going to be better because you're going to get very locationally specific property managers. So if you're looking at an asset in X neighborhood and you go around that neighborhood and find property management signs, you know they're there. Where my methodology is sort of just, looking on a general map and maybe they manage that neighborhood, maybe they don't. So I think Shawn's method will be more precise. But I'll do like a general call. I'll say, hey, like when we were looking at, for a period of time pre-COVID, we were going to move to the Dallas marketplace to build our urban townhouse product in Old East Dallas as an area we had identified. So I called property managers. Now for us in doing new construction development, it was more me running the style of unit. Hey, we're going to do a 5-bedroom, workforce family oriented product. Like, what do you think of that? How does that hit you? And basically, 2 or 3 property managers pretty much quickly got me off that. Like that wasn't going to work. But what they did identify, interestingly enough, was in Old East Dallas, they were building a lot of 3-story townhomes, which is exactly our product, but they were doing 2-bedroom, 2,000 square foot units with a 2-car garage, but still 3-story format, row home, all that kind of stuff. Interestingly enough, Shawn, you'll love this. The 2 bedrooms were running for $3,500 a month, which is exactly the rent that our 5 bedrooms were in LA and Orange County at the time. This is, 2019, 2020. I was like, wow, so you could rent a 2-bedroom for the same. The reason people did 2 bedrooms was because the zoning in the city of Dallas limited your parking to a car garage. You could only do 2 bedrooms for 2 cars in the garage. And so if you went to 3 bedrooms, you had to do 3 cars and weird stuff like that. So nobody did that. But basically the intelligence was both, I'm thinking about doing this, talk me into it or talk me out of it. Usually I tell them like, beat it up, like, destroy my thesis, tell me why it doesn't work. And then when you start to get on track on, in this case, it was like professional roommates in a 2-bedroom with a den type unit. That was sort of like, yeah, that's a market you can sort of dig more into. The other one that I always use is always go talk to the investment sales brokers. So the Marcus and Millichaps, the CB Richard Ellis. And what I want to get from them is, what's selling, what's not selling. When it's not selling, why is it not selling? What's the challenge of, the investment sales, particularly if you're looking at a value add existing asset, so, the guys in Dallas would tell you, don't buy the flat roof master metered buildings in Dallas. They will eat you alive on operating expenses. So that kind of, market level intelligence is really valuable. And then just from a pure development perspective, we'll always use like historic costs for our construction numbers, Andrew. So we'll have, over the last 3 or 4 deals, we sort of have a running average of what we think the framing per square foot price should be, with the electrical, mechanical, plumbing. So we have sort of a database of historic numbers going back for our townhouse product back to 2017. Now, obviously, numbers change over time, inflation, market adjustments. So you have to use really the last deal, maybe 2. And then what you'll do is, in your due diligence period, preferably, you'll try to price construction today. Now, Shawn will acknowledge this, but, when you go to a sub or a GC early on schematic plans, when the job's 6 or 8 months out from actual starting, if you have good sub relationships, they'll give you a slightly high number because they don't want to be wrong, right? They'd rather tell you, hey, I got the number down. Not, oops, I gave you a low number and it went up by 30%. That looks bad for the subs. So you can pretty much trust they'll give you a high number. And it also depends on how busy they are. If they're super busy, they'll throw you stupidly high number. I won't tell you the choice words, but it's, sort of the FU number, I call it. But, you sort of need to know that that's like what they're doing. And then that applies to everything else, Andrew. I mean, operating expenses, just, what's your last deal? Plus what is your, we use Greystar for property management, our institutional, fund deals, and we get, estimates from them. So it's sort of a combination of historics, right? Recent historics, plus, in due diligence, we get all kinds of reports. We get, rent surveys from Greystar. We got operating expenses from Greystar. We'll have our construction team in-house, try to bid as much as we can that early, which is, sometimes a challenge, but we always want to get some sort of a benchmark. So it's, sort of the trust, the historics plus verify that, your numbers are really accurate today because, something may have changed.
No, that's helpful. And I'm an architect. I'm actually based out of New York City. So I've definitely dealt with some of the crazy construction quotes you're talking about. I've gotten everything from the super highball numbers to the lowball numbers that you just know that is not realistic.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of the development rent-based sort of market-based data, that's some of the areas that I've been trying to learn about and grow. Because eventually hoping to move in and be able to do some development deals of my own, kind of
Yeah,
architect developer
Good.
model.
one thing I'll add to what Shawn was describing, there really is a lot of value in working in your home market and having the history of it. So Shawn's example of going to Dayton, or for us, you know, we're looking at like a Dallas, or even like right now, we're looking at some sites up in the Bay Area, right? For you know, new construction townhouse product. And it's exactly like Shawn described. Like we got, you know, new property managers, or although Greystar goes up there, so we use them, but still different market, different team, different regional managers, different ways of cities, different impact fees, different construction costs. So, you know, in that example, you know, we'll go do a fee study real time, right? We'll go do our own rent survey, and because we know this product so well, and we only build our 5-bedroom townhomes, that's like all we build. You know, we know sort of general sense of like value in any given market relative to incomes and other rent comparables. But we'll go through and find, you know, just like Shawn did, except this is applied to like a new construction format. You know, so as an example, hard costs for me in the development space, that's always the hardest part to get, and have good numbers that you can trust aren't overly high or overly low, like you said, Andrew. And so in this instance, our, you know, one of the partners in our equity fund happened to, they're a land developer that's active, entitling and selling land deals up in the Bay Area. They have a deal in Pleasanton and in Contra Costa County. And so when they sell land to home builders, they always require the home builders give them their vertical costs for their attached townhouse product that they're building and selling. So think like a Beazer, Toll, KB, you know, Trimark, all the, you know, all the big, you know, sort of home building names up there. And so we get, like in that case, we got, you know, really accurate, very recent hard cost numbers from a local home builder. And when we match those up, because our style of building is like a home builder. So in other words, we don't use a GC. We go direct to the subcontract markets, you know, own superintendent, own project managers, own, you know, purchasing agents. And so our style of construction is exactly like these home builders are. And then the only thing we need to adjust is either a time recency thing. So if the number's too old, we'll need to mark it up a little bit. Or if our project will start in a year and a half, you know, we need to inflate going forward into the future. And then we don't do a lot of adjustment here, but there is a story about, you know, if you are a Lennar and you're building, you know, hundreds and hundreds of townhomes in Contra Costa and Alameda counties, there is a story of some volume discount that they can get either in purchasing materials, or they do a lot of volume with subs. They're going to get like that, you know, big home builder sort of, you know, volume discount that, you know, we can't. We're, you know, we'll do probably, you know, like less than you know, a few hundred a year. And, you know, when we're up and, you know, fully stood up in the Bay Area, which is a decent number, but it's not matching, you know, in a, you know, historic production of a, you know, Lennar or, you know, any big home builder like that. Andrew, that good?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Thank you guys
Yeah.
both.
Appreciate it. All right, Shawn, let's maybe just like a couple more questions at 12:07. So who else? You got thousands of dollars of an hour of consulting knowledge sitting here.
I'm free.
All right,
All right, go Carol.
Carol.
So I guess my first question is, when are y'all going to come up here? You know, I feel like sort of like the unloved part of California in a weird way. And it's really interesting because we're kind of this, you know, afterthought between San Francisco and Los Angeles. And, you know, Scott and I have had a lot of conversations about how he needs to come up here and build workforce housing because we've got a lot of the same issues, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I mean, for anybody who doesn't know, my background was administering bankruptcy estates and selling assets of all different kinds and all different classes. And so I look around at a place like Salinas and I just go, I can't believe there's not more money coming here.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at things like industrial in terms of ag, which is a powerhouse, obviously. And then I look at our old areas all around the downtowns, which are full of properties with major deferred maintenance and, huge lots. And I'm just kind of going, hello, because we don't have the same kind of regulatory challenges that places like the city of LA or city of San Francisco. We've got the overall California challenges, but it's a much easier place to work with. And so, I'm plugging it so that anybody who's listening who wants to come and play in this area, because I do see a lot of assets that have been held by the same families for 50, 60, 70 years. And I feel there's a lot of opportunity for creative seller financing here because the basis is so low on so many of these.
Are you
There's
meaning all kinds of assets, Carol? Like the industrial, ag, multifamily, everything that's in that sort of 50-year? Yeah.
Yeah, everything across the board. I mean, we've got, multifamilies from the 30s that have been in the same family since they were built, practically.
Yeah, right.
And so I just feel like that is an opportunity for folks when the rates are so high right now, right? And we've also got this challenge of sellers who have some unrealistic expectations and might just throw it out there to hang out.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to necessarily give them their price. And so then you start to think about things that like Casey does, right? With these different creative financing ideas. And so I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, that there are in these different spaces, especially these older towns, a lot of sellers who would sell if they could find the right combination of price and capital gains, whether or not they're 1031ing out.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's perfect KC deal, right? Seller financed, like own free and clear, right? Carol, probably often, if you've owned it that long, ripe for, sort of try to structure a seller finance deal, installment sale, no capital gains, or at least no single event upfront capital gains. A lot of value in that. I'll just sort of, Carol's heard this from me, but for us, we're sort of, our product wants to go in big, city kind of areas, and this doesn't surprise Carol at all. We've been talking about this. For me, I actually like the Salinas market for our housing type because of the ag industry, families, farm workers, and not that we would necessarily do farm worker housing, which doesn't exist, sort of a version of affordable housing, a multi-room, housing type, not co-living exactly, but, think of it like co-living for ag or shared housing for ag. So that definitely could be a strong suit. I think, Carol, the reason that you're not seeing a lot of activity in the way that you're looking for is that, small markets, have smaller volumes. Let me ask you a question, Carol. Do any major home builders, either detached and probably no attached, I would think, but do you have some of the big publics in Salinas and Gilroy and some of those cities, think like the Choppin Broads or KB and, those guys, anybody building locally there?
Yeah, so we've really only got a couple areas where there's building happening. I mean, the challenges around here between the water issue and some of the regulations in terms of growth and preserving that farmland really do constrain.
Yeah.
But where you are seeing it is in places like South County. So that's going to be like your Soledads, Gonzales, sort of in those zones. There are some of the bigger guys. And then over in Hollister, that's really like they're building like crazy
Yeah.
over there
How
because
about
that's
Morgan?
become a huge
How about Morgan Hill?
Morgan Hill and Gilroy are both much more upscale markets,
Right.
and the NIMBY action there is much more powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you do have some other, flood concerns and different things there that do constrain. The other big development here on the Monterey Bay is the Marina Seaside, former Fort Ord,
Yeah.
where they built a lot of housing around the new California State University, Monterey Bay.
Yeah. Right.
So that has been going on for sort of in stages. And I mean, they're going for well over $1 million there on new builds.
Wow.
I think one of the other things that happens is from an investor standpoint. So think like institutional capital sources, when they look at these kind of markets. I mean, you have the great, inside intelligence, Carol, and Shawn, will weigh in here. I mean, I have actually some experience. So I went to school up at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, and although that's further south in San Luis Obispo County, spent a lot of time, driving in and around through, and my old job at Choppin and Broad, I actually worked on several projects in and around Gilroy and Soledad and Salinas, as I recall. But here's what happens is, if you're an institutional capital guy and you're at Artemis or you're at Drake or one of these, sort of mid-sized private equity shops, you're sitting in your office building in New York and you're looking at a map of Salinas. And you're like, I'm going to be blunt here, Carol, like, where the hell is this place? Right? Seriously, like what's there? And it's not fair. And I all the time, I mean, even still in Inland Empire, I still get a little bit of heat about like, oh, it's Inland Empire. We want to be in LA. Like, we know that Orange County is great. Can't you find stuff there? And we know the answer to that. It's hard. So I think that's where you get, Carol, is it's just a perception issue, right or wrong, and the housing need isn't any less from a population based measure, right? Per capita, or however you want to think of it. Shawn, what do you think? How's that hit you?
Look, in those markets, it's all about repositioning existing assets. It's really hard to build in those areas.
Yeah.
The subs it's like building a vacation markets. The sub costs are too expensive. There's not enough of them.
Yeah.
It's all about the creative financing and the repositioning.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even think about sub limited because that's too far south for anybody. They're not going to come out of San Jose. It's too far. So you got to get the super local sub and just small sub base. Carol, there's interesting. I talked to them, and I believe the company is Sage Equities, and I think that a couple own that, and they're on Twitter. And I'm blanking on their names. I apologize, but they did some townhomes in Bakersfield, and that was yeah,
downtown.
Downtown, cool stuff. And I think of that here, Carol. Not that Bakersfield and Salinas are necessarily directly comparable. They're sort of like smaller markets, a little off, farther away from like the city center kind of, or the metro area maybe is the way to better describe it. And they made it work. And so I think where it goes, you just, again, it's that super local knowledge. Like they are from Bakersfield, like literally, multi-generational Bakersfield people that understood it and could operate in that market and whatever, had the contacts and, the history. And they live there, by the way. That's a key, part of their offer. They know the land markets, they probably know a lot of the subs, they certainly know the people at the city. So I think for Salinas and Gilroy and Soledad, it'll be people that are from there that know that market are there, maybe have some other, like the Sage Equities people in Bakersfield. They were like, we believe in Bakersfield and we want to do stuff here, which is amazing. I mean, that's like, the perfect entrepreneurial spirit. For guys that are out of the market, like, it just becomes like the cost of doing business and the friction to move into a new market outweighs what, particularly the cost structure, but then the volume question, right? Like if I'm going to go, like, even for me, like we're moving to the Bay Area and we're working in Contra Costa County, like huge population, we're not on the Bay, we're sort of inland. I still got to talk to my investors and still go, hey, look, I got this deal, 109 units on the first deal, but I got another deal behind that, another deal and another deal. like they're not in a mood to talk to me about, Bay Area until I got multiple deals. And, I'm arguing that Bay Area is, probably equally in need of housing from a housing constraint standpoint. I might argue worse in some locations because of the even more difficult politics there. Gosh. But Carol, just to give you a sense of like, I gotta demonstrate to them that I got sort of like a programmatic, like, portfolio of land deals ready to go, more or less. The timing's not all the same for all of them, but I don't think I could line up 3 or 4 sizable townhome projects in, you might do one in Salinas, one in Soledad, one in Gilroy, one in Morgan Hill, probably even reach up into South San Jose. But there's got to be like that sort of bigger volume story for most people, I would say. Not everyone.
Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Scott. Even with the comparison to Bakersfield, I'm going to let that go.
I did qualify it, Carol. Not that they compared
I
directly.
know you did. I know you tried. I know you tried. No,
Yeah,
it's,
fair enough.
yeah. And I agree. And it's really interesting because I'm from Santa Cruz, which is an even more ridiculous, right? And I still do, I cover the whole Tri-County. I've lived here my whole life, right?
Right.
And so I look around and I go, okay, where is the population going? Right. And they're just marching down 101.
Yeah.
And I think that you're right, though, that the key is really trying to find other people that are sort of in the periphery, maybe
Yeah.
they're Bay Area, and
Yeah.
they're not able to work the numbers there. I
Yeah.
think they might find this area more amenable. But yeah, in terms of the
I mean,
big
like,
guys, there's
yeah.
not enough play.
Yeah, for us, like we're like I definitely like for our Bay Area plan. I mean, we're focused on Contra Costa and Alameda counties because we like the inland area of those. In fact, I call it the Inland Empire of the Bay Area, and that's inland Contra Costa, inland Alameda County. But South San Jose is interesting to me, Carol. And so, like where I go, like years down the road, I go, look, I got enough volume in Santa Clara County, and particularly that south end of Santa Clara County. And then you go, okay, I could pick up a couple deals, that are, like I built my sub base in southern Santa Clara County, and then I can reach it into Salinas. So I'm thinking about you, Carol. I'm thinking about you.
I always appreciate you guys.
All right, good. Well, I think that's it, guys. So Shawn, man, listen, thank you. Amazing. I certainly learned a ton, and appreciate, your willingness to, be open and share about, what you're doing generally and the stuff in Phoenix. So kudos to you, man. Congratulations on buying those 2, the 8 and the 10 unit multifamily.
Thank you.
I'm excited for you.
Thanks, Scott. We'll
Yeah,
chat again
good.
soon.
All right.
Thanks for putting this
all.
together.
Hey, by the way, I'm going to record this and put it on YouTube. So, if anybody missed it and they're contacting you, tell them share. It'll be probably a few days.
Cool.
And then, we'll keep doing this. So appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Shawn. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.